has not been factually proven in the realm of actual science or history. So the reason that I say that is because it is difficult, not for me, but for the average person, it's difficult for them to prove origins of the stories, because the stories are completely from somebody's own, discernment and opinion. It's not from an actual point of reference. So I just want to make that clear as I as I get ready to expound upon this point. And if y'all give me 2 seconds, I'm transferring my USB back into my desktop because I want to put a image back up. But as I wait for that to load, when we dealing with biblical genealogy, right?
Yeah.
Noah comes from the Caucasus Mountains. The Torah, the Bible, the Quran all agree that when after the flood, right, the boat landed in Mount Ararat, which is the Caucasus Mountains. So now the issue that I'm having with accepting Jews, black or white, claiming that they come from Israel is because in order to establish political legitimacy or monarchy, you have to establish that you are native to the land or that you are descendants of those who were native to the land.
Sure.
And if anybody is claiming that they're a descendant of Noah, they are claiming that they are descendants of the Caucasus Mountains. And so here's the issue that I'm having. Scientifically, according to the Australian Research Center for Ancient DNA, we can prove that white people, Caucasoid people, because even if you don't identify as white, the term Jew is not a genealogical description. You can't genealogically be a Jew. There's only 4 phenotypes: Dravidian, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, which is Asians and Koreans and all of them, and then there's Negroid, which is me and Africans. So Jews, whether you Ashkenazi, Khazarian, or whatever other terminology, y'all all fall genetically in the category of Caucasoid. And Caucasoids, according to not only history, but biblical history as well, descend from the Caucasus Mountains. So we have to ask ourselves, if we were here first as black people, and we know this to be fact, how with the Middle East being an extension of Africa, our Caucasoids claiming that they are native to a land that not only they were never there, they were there and inhabited it after us. And so here's my thing, right? As I continue to go down, because I want to make sure I touch on every point. You brought up Jacob, right? Now, we know that there were no J's back then. And people say that there were Y's. Now, I disagree with that as well. But staying on that notion, Jacob would be Jacob, which people would say is Yakub.
Yeah.
Now, Yakub in Hebrew literally means supplanter. And the reason that that's critical and the reason that that's important, as I get ready to share my screen right now. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna see if I can do it. I'm gonna see, since I'm still tapped in on my laptop, I'm gonna share it like this. So I'm gonna bring my other one up, and then I'm gonna hit screen share, and I'm gonna just pause. So let me come back in. And as I was saying, the reason that knowing the definition is important of Yakub is because, once again, the Bible, monotheism is an entity used by Freemasons in order to communicate with one another. And as I bring this slide up right now, I'm going to show you what they're talking about. Okay, so when we talk about supplanting, right? To supplant, they're talking about genetic engineering. Now, why is this important? I'm not being racist. Let me pull up the damn article. This right here is from Molecular Biology and Evolution. And this clearly states that if you are not a descendant, it says if your heritage is non-African, you are part Neanderthal. Now, the number specifically is you are 93% human and 7% Neanderthal. Caucasians come from Dravidians. So when we talk about white people coming from albinos, here's the problem. They don't come from African albinos, or Caucasoids, I should say. Don't come from African albinos. This man over here on the left is an African albino. You can clearly still see he's an African. This man right here, which kind of looks like you but has blonde hair, comes from this albino Dravidian. So everybody just looking at this picture would think that this is a white man. This is not a white man. This is an albino Dravidian. So basically, everybody knows who Dr. Shiva is. This is Dr. Shiva if he was an albino. Now, I'm going to tell you why that's important. When we're dealing with science, we know from basic science 101, two separate species cannot sexually reproduce, or they're called hybrids. So we coming back to Jacob, aka Yaakov, which is a Hebrew word for subplant. And there's a story, and I'm going by, your history. There's a story where they say Yaakov engineered a species of people on the island of Patmos. And Yaakov is a term for a subplanter, and Patmos is not only an actual island, it's a Freemasonic lodge called the Island of Patmos. So white Freemasons, specifically Jews, do acknowledge that they have genetically engineered origin. And so this once again raises my issue with accepting Judaism, because not only do Caucasoid Jews have an inability to prove that they were somewhere first, they have an inability to prove where they were, period. Because if we deal with the terminology, right, before I go to, and let me check this off so I don't double talk. If we deal with the terminology, right, I'm gonna just deal with Ashkenazi and Khazarian. Okay. Khazar by definition means a wanderer. So there is no Khazarian Jew on the planet who can claim Israel when even by the etymological roots of their word, they call themselves wanderers. Now, Ashkenazi is Ashkenazi. Now, Ashka means beloved, and then you have Nazi. And Nazi is the combination of the word national and socialism. So the word Ashkenazi means to beloved national socialism. So you have one handful of Jews over here who don't have a land by decree of their own title. Then you got another handful of European converted Jews who are secretly Zionist Nazis by etymological terminology. So once again, the Judaic religion is a Masonic falsified history used to falsely establish political legitimacy where there is none. Now, I want to keep going down on your points, because we talked about the term, or you brought up the term Semitic, which comes from Shem and things like that. Now, the Torah, since we're dealing with the Torah, but monotheism as a whole is racist, and it promotes racism. Why do I say that? Because in the Torah, in the Bible, and in the Quran, they all specifically state that the descendants of Ham, which are black people according to biblical history, are to be the slaves and servants of Shem, which are Caucasoids, because Arabs are also considered Caucasoids. So the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran says that we're not only your slaves, you guys have a term for us that you call non-Jews, which is Goyim. So another issue that I'm having with the Jewish community is when we speak on the Jewish community and we call them out for terroristic behavior, even in the doctrine, if anything promoting slavery is terroristic, they reply with being anti-Semitic. But if I was a religious entity, I could flip that and say you're anti-Hamite, because the Bible says, and the Quran says, and the Torah says that we are the slaves of the descendants of Shem, and you guys actually call us Goyim. And when you read the Torah, which I have, it says that through the judicial system, hence Jew, that you can rob a Goyim. That basically, if a Jew is the plaintiff, if the Jew is the plaintiff and the Goyim is the defendant, that the Jew shall always win. And I will pull the verse up if you need to see it. And so with that being said, not only is Judaism a non-established belief system, it's extremely racist, and it definitely promotes slavery. Now, as I continue to go down, right, Jacob wrestling with God, and you brought up the Bible, so I'll bring it up. In the Bible, Jesus says, nobody has ever seen or heard my Father. That's an actual quote. So if in the Bible, Jesus says nobody has ever seen or heard my Father, how the hell could Jacob wrestle with God? And also, how did God speak to Moses if nobody ever heard or seen God? And then here's my question. Not only do we have to prove, okay, because if Israel is the original land of Caucasoid Jews, and it's an extension of Africa, why, if Jews are naturally from Israel, why is Israel the second largest? Why does Israel the second worst nation in the world involving sun cancer? Because if y'all were naturally supposed to be over there, it wouldn't have sun cancer at a level that high to where it's literally the second worst in the whole world. There is no nation in the world outside of the top, I mean, within the top 3 nations in the world suffering from sun cancer. Israel is number 2. So there's no way that you can naturally prove you're original to this land, even if we take the Bible out of it, if we take the Torah out of it, if we take the Quran out of it, you can't even live over there. And so continuing on, right, as I go down, right, I want to ask this question. When we dealing with the Exodus, which means by definition a mass departure, right? This story says that 600,000 white people, according to Caucasoid Jews, because I know you wouldn't consider yourself white, so I'm going to say Caucasoid because I'm dealing with phenotypes. According to Caucasoids, 600,000 Caucasoids migrated out of Egypt and then wandered the desert for 40 years. Now, any Caucasoid person watching this, I'm not attacking you, but let's just be clear here. You couldn't live in the Sahara Desert for 40 days. Let's just be honest here. So you want us to believe that 600,000 Caucasoids left Egypt and then wandered the desert for 40 years and made it to Israel and established a nation. Meanwhile, you can't even go to the beach right now without getting sun cancer. So for one, that is scientifically an impossible story. Now, when we dealing with Egypt, right, and the Jews, historical times and events in Egypt, right, and if possible, I would like you to write these down so you can answer these.
Yeah, I'm writing the whole time.
Yes, sir. They say that the Jews built the Temple of Ramesses during their time in Egypt under enslavement of the Pharaoh.